Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's great to be with you guys on a gorgeous Thursday across Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, and the world. I love connecting with you guys on this platform. I have been so effing pumped for the past 24 hours for this show. The first time in I Love CVille Show history, we have done a part 2.
There we go.
Razor in the house, Max in the house, Charles in the house. You know what? To save time, we're going to go straight to the show, and we're going to give some props to the sponsors after the show. All right, go to the studio cam, and let's welcome the stars of the show. We got ladies first, Max in the house,
Hi.
Charles in the house, and Razor. Guys, yesterday's show was so effing lit. Let's just cut straight to the chase. Topics that were relayed to us that people wanted to cover. The first one was Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson and, his removal of his birthday from the Charlottesville city calendar as an official holiday for city employees. Max, anywhere you want to go?
Oh, calling me first.
Ladies first.
Let's see. What are my thoughts on this? So I think historically, our story, right, has been told for us. The black story has been told for us. Many of the people that talk about the black plight don't look like us. They can't identify with it, right? They have no understanding of it. And so I think that what we have here is we have members sitting on Charlottesville's governing body who now have the ability to take certain issues that still hinder us and sit them front and center, right? We're not going to skip over this thing. We're going to talk about it. We're not going to go around it. We're going to change it. We're not going to cover it up. We're going to let this thing stink so that we can have some real change here, right?
Well put.
And so what we have are these people who have lived through these issues, have seen them, who may have some insight as to how to fix them, are now in a position where they can make these changes. So when we talk about narrative, I know what people who look like you, right, may feel about Thomas Jefferson. But what do people who look like me feel about Thomas Jefferson? Do you understand?
Yes.
And so that's pretty much my thoughts on it. And then the other part of that is that who's to say that council or the people that support this are wrong, right? Is Mayor Walker or West wrong because they're black or because she's a female? Or because it's Thomas Jefferson, or because, who's to say it's wrong? And I believe that everybody kind of governs based on what they think is right for the times. And so when we talk about changing the narrative, I think that that's what this is.
What are you thinking, Charles?
Yeah, that's a tough one to follow, though.
What am I thinking?
Good job.
With Thomas Jefferson, that's definitely, a polarizing figure. But the significance to him is even stronger because it's local. But really, and not just his birthday, but just celebrating him in general is more of how I look at it. Celebrating him should be done in the same way that it's done for all of our historical figures and all of our public figures who contribute to society. Meaning that we have to be honest about who they were, and there's other, again, historical figures I can think of, but with Thomas Jefferson, he's human, right? So he had good and bad side. So if you want to uphold for instance, the University of Virginia and his contributions, to academia through that's totally fine. But at the same time, you also have to show the other side of the Hemings family, and you have to be totally honest about that. And it's just like, he was a president. It's just like with any other president today. Somebody shouldn't have to be perfect to be able to be a public figure, because you're human, and there's positives and negatives with everyone. So you can celebrate the positives while being honest about the negatives.
What are you thinking, Razor?
Hey,
Too
now,
tough to
how you
follow.
gonna
No.
When I first heard that they were getting ready to, take away the holiday, I was like, oh Lord, here comes the backlash. And then I looked at, okay, what does that say to the community? That says that there's things that the story that was told or how we chose to look at somebody may not have been true. We all know that in the history books, our story is never right. We find out that we've done so much for inventions and things of that nature. Even when you take the tour up at his house and they start telling you how the house was built, who had to pull those logs up there, who had to do all these particular things, it's horrific. when you go into his office and see the things that he were part of, he didn't believe in the Bible. He wrote his own Bible. Don't believe me? Go up there and take the tour for yourself. He ripped out parts of the Bible. He has the picture of John the Baptist's head on the plate. Like, there were certain things about Christianity that he did not like. So when it comes to what Charles says, there shows that there are some flaws on my side, because I'm a Christian. So there are some flaws, even though he was president. So just because he was put into a position, because it was only so many people, it was a round table. So it was like, Thomas Jefferson, all right, you're a president. James Madison, you're a president. You know, we all just took turns in being president. That's really what it was back then. So really, what are you celebrating? You know, I mean, as a worker, I like it because I get the day off and get some money. But what am I really celebrating? What did he really do? Yes, he wrote something because he was the one told to write it. So it really doesn't matter to me whether they celebrate it or don't celebrate it, honestly, because once you go and you learn the narrative of the story, he's not much different than some of the people that we're complaining about nowadays.
Yeah. Scott Hamler, welcome to the program. A lot of people watching right now. I'm going to throw this to you. One of the things I want to debunk is people often talk about Thomas Jefferson and the relationship with Sally Hemings. I don't think we can, in my humble opinion. Okay, all right. It's
I'm gonna
That'll
send you
be
the bill for
$5.99.
that.
yeah, you got the trademark. I
Yeah.
can use an IP
Yes,
infringement
indeed.
right there. How can we call this a love-based relationship when he owned Sally Hemings?
Right.
Okay,
You can't.
that is not love, right? And that's one thing that I always try to debunk, that is not a relationship. It is not love. Sally Hemings was his slave. Okay, so if anything, Thomas Jefferson having these sexual relationships with Sally Hemings, that is not consensual. Okay, and I will leave it at that. And that infuriates a lot of people when I say that,
Yeah.
but it's a fact. She, at that time, was his possession. Okay, and let's put that out there, and let's wrap our minds around that.
Yeah,
what do
she
you-
left to go to France. And, you know, he tracked her back down and promised her, okay, I'll free some of your people. That's
Right.
not love.
That's not love. That's not love. Charles, what are we thinking here?
You want me and you to dig in?
I mean, a lot of folks say this. I mean, if Thomas Jefferson removed from the Charlottesville city calendar, does that then go to the University of Virginia? Does that then go to Monticello? Does Charlottesville City still want the tax revenue that comes with tourist visits and locals visits to Monticello? You know?
Oh, yeah, they want that.
Of course
Yeah,
they do.
they
They
want that.
definitely want
Yeah.
that. What did jump in here?
All right. First thing came to my mind is that he went black and couldn't go back. First, you know, if we've been
A little too much sugar in the juice.
Turn off the mic.
in all seriousness, it's the same like all across Monticello. You know, like with that tour, as Razor was saying, and again, like telling the full story because, like just as like you very well described the story with he and Sally Hemings, you know that also reverberates and it crosses into the lane of a lot of his other dealings and accomplishments. Like when you go in there and they talk about the architecture and the structure, like he didn't do that handwork. You know what I mean? And there was a gentleman, his name is escaping me right now. Like, but he had a personal assistant.
Yeah, I can see him.
Who was African American,
Mm-hmm.
and he is credited like for writing like a lot of his speeches, writing like a lot of like the architectural plans and all that kind of stuff. But Thomas Jefferson gets credit for it. So to me, like, you know, that's the root of the issue of the way Sally Hemings could be treated is really, you know, even though that was sexual, in essence, that's the same way that the rest of the slaves were treated as well, meaning that they were used for their purpose, and then they did not get any credit, and their lineage also suffers for not getting any of that credit.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Before you jump in, I just want to say that what we can't forget and what too few people fail to mention is that the city of Charlottesville is not the only local city or county who no longer recognize Thomas Jefferson's birthday. Albemarle County has done the very same thing, but we don't hear the flack
Charlottesville, the
about
headlines.
that.
It's because of UVA.
I understand, but you know, we're not the only ones here.
It's interesting with and how the media covers the Board of Supervisors versus the city councilors. The city councilors are the ones that drive the news cycle. The Board of Supervisors are always kind of like in the, the back. You know what I'm saying? It's like the city councilors are like MJ and Pippen and the Bulls, where like the city councilors are, where the Board of Supervisors are like the Milwaukee Bucks or something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's accurate.
Yeah.
What do you jump in here? Your thoughts on Jefferson? Wade Lewis he says, "Hey guys, I'm loving this part 2. If you guys have questions, comments you want to put in the feed, please do. A lot of people jumping in. I will get to your comments here in a matter of seconds." Razor.
Because I'm African American, talking about like when you see and you hear these stories of how somebody's grandmother was taken forcefully, and the kids were, this is his kids that he got working out in the fields. So they were still, in essence, whether it was a field Negro or house Negro, these were still his possessions, even though they were his kids. And I'm gonna take it a step further. When it comes to like things like DACA or the kids down in Texas, and these kids start being separated and they start disappearing. If people want to know what slavery was like for African Americans, just look at what's being done to the Hispanic community right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And another way to bring it home, to make that topic really, really relevant for today, because one thing that we strive to do at IMHO, and is we need to look at how that same thing has been passed on, right? Like that same sort of idea of that misuse, and somehow it still gets celebrated that Thomas Jefferson did, which is like with our kids. Think about that, like that star high school football player, right? And how when they graduate, you really see that sometimes that AD, that coach, that teacher, sometimes that girlfriend didn't really care about them.
Yeah.
Right.
They wanted to see how they could benefit off of that young man's back.
Means to end.
And so we see that with a lot of African Americans even today. So we need to be mindful of that and be aware.
I love that. I love that. This is funny. Kevin Higgins just said, "I took my Bucks poster down from my man cave." Jerry. Wade's giving you some props here. Tim and Crozet's got this comment. You guys have gone a show and a start of a second show, and you haven't brought up Dr. Wes Bellamy. So these topics, and I'm gonna do both sides. So these were the topics that were put on the feed yesterday. One topic, and a lot of folks said this about Dr. Bellamy, we need more Dr. Bellamys in the community because he has the courage and the essentially the cojones to push the tempo and to lead and to do things other folks don't want to do. The flip side of the coin that was also put on the feed was that Dr. Bellamy was using the statues, and at the time it was called Lee Park, to his personal gain for advancing political aspirations. So those were the topics that were put out there. Start open-ended. Razor?
All right. This is my whole thing. He didn't start it. Like if you look back, there was things that a young lady put in to have the statue removed prior
Zy
to
Bryant.
No, prior to
Prior
that.
to Zy? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there was a lady that put in beforehand that she wanted to get it removed before Dr. Bellamy. So you have to go back that far. Now, as for what he did, he was a spearhead, and the spearhead is always going to be one that takes all the beating. Not everybody is built to be that. Now, this isn't me exalting Dr. Bellamy at all, but it is what it is. So, because if he's going to speak on something, just like you said, you're balls to the wall, he's going to speak on it with everything that he has in him. So, because he was able to make relevant points, of course, he's going to be the one to be attacked. Now, in my personal feelings, because he made certain points and people were looking towards him, of course, his career is going to get advanced by default. Not that he said, I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to let my kids be disrespected and I'm going to let my wife be disrespected and I'm going to have all these things going on in the community.
Like threats.
Yeah, and this young lady's going to get killed. No, I do not believe. I don't know and never asked him, but I don't believe that he set out to do that. I think that in the course of him trying to stand up for his justice, for what he believed in, his career advanced because of it. Not the way that the person asked the question.
What do you guys think? Want to touch on that?
Personally, I think leadership comes in all shapes and sizes, right? And oftentimes people like to place judgment on it or put it in a box as to what it looks like and how it should be done. There's a lot of people who say the screaming and the ranting and raving have no place, and just
talking
kind
in
of
a council chamber.
just trying to put parameters on people who are activists for the African American community, and from my perspective, I believe that all of those things are necessary, right? So I believe that the West Bellamy's of the world are necessary. And if we didn't have the West Bellamy's of the world, then sure, we've made some strides, but where would we be had we not, right? So I think that someone that's courageous enough to step out and say, these are the changes that I see that need to be made, and be willing to lead those type of initiatives are necessary for the movement of the Black community in general.
Martin
right?
Luther King wasn't popular at the time.
And there's
wasn't either.
there's a lot of people like that walking our streets today, and I think they're necessary. A lot of people may say, you're too loud, or be quiet, or if you want to lead, then it looks like this. No, we need all of that. I'm not a person that can wake up. There's people on like my social media feeds that day and night they're looking for the different atrocities that affect us and calling them out and pointing them out and talking about how we can fix it. That's not me. I can't fight it all day. Sometimes I just got to unplug from social media and I'm just not thinking about it today. I'm not dealing with it today. But those people are warranted and needed in order to move us all forward. We all fight differently, right? But that common goal is what helps to, I believe, push the Black community forward.
Charles, throw this to you. Like you said, paraphrasing you, first to market is often the first to get slaughtered. Another example, like you said, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were not popular. Colin Kaepernick lost his job, but he started a movement that undoubtedly changed the country. And he had the courage to start this movement and risk a lot of stuff.
Yeah, people don't like change. People don't like anything that they feel that they may lose their position. Doesn't matter what it is. Think about it when people are on their job and somebody new gets hired. When they walk through the door, everybody's looking at them. They're looking for a reason not to like them. They haven't done anything wrong. So when you have a person that says, look, this is what we don't like as a people, regardless of what your nationality or creed is, people are going to look at, okay, by him saying he doesn't like that, what did that change on my end? Affirmative action, became something bad for people. Oh, I can't get a job because I got to hire 7 Black people. So because the playing field might get even, people don't like that. And they don't like when you speak on it. So then it becomes something else. That can, perfect example, and this is just Razor saying, Donald Trump built his presidency on fear, okay? That's what people are trying to do with the statues and everything else. They will not replace us. How am I replacing you, telling you I want to go to better schools, I want better books, I want my children to have education, I want to own land? How am I replacing you? I'm just asking for my piece of the pie, too.
Well said, Charles.
Yeah. To wrap it up, to me, successful people are opportunists. That's how I like to say it. Successful people are opportunists. Now, you could be a good or a bad opportunist, but any successful person can look at any situation, like you could put them in any environment. They could, sell ice to an igloo, right? But either you're going to help people on your way up, or you're going to step on people on your way up. You're going to bring people up with you, or you're going to downtrodden them.
Sure.
But successful people are going to be opportunists, and so that's not a bad thing. It takes sometimes some people with the guts to really step out and be a martyr. Most movements, that's what you need. And when I say martyr, I'm not talking about just a physical death.
Yeah.
I'm talking about sometimes your reputation.
Absolutely. Your children.
Yeah. Or like your family has to be sacrificed in its own way to move the culture forward, or to move society forward. And not everybody's going to understand that. And that's one thing. Sometimes there's a lot of jealousy.
Absolutely.
But even with the president of the United States, even let's go back to Barack Obama, it's like for all the greatness, for all the symbolic, all the symbolism that was there with that presidency and all the good things that he did, there's so much bad that, that also came with that seat. Some of it is just systematic. Some of it is like this is the way things are and you're going to operate. You can't, push too much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have a world government that you're actually dealing with. But, but all that said, the main point that I'm making though is that sometimes, people like Dr. Bellamy rub others the wrong way because sometimes they just don't understand, right? Sometimes they are jealous of his accomplishments. Like there's just so many reasons, but at the end of the day, we all are living here in Charlottesville together. We all have to be honest about where we want to see it move forward and know that we're not going to agree on every method and every peace.
And let me add this one thing, Charles.
good.
Let's take it a little bit further. A lot of people don't like to see an African American in a high place unless it has to do with sports. They just,
Very
you
true.
know, they don't like taking orders from African Americans. They don't like seeing African Americans in certain positions without it being a sports or entertainment. It's fine for us to sing, dance, shake our tail, dunk a basketball. But if I tell you if I'm a CEO of something or if I own multiple companies, people look at you differently.
Yeah, and another thing is too, for someone like Dr. Bellamy to speak out and be honest about the position that black people are in Charlottesville today because of the history of Charlottesville. If people got outraged as much towards things like
Any injustice.
any other ones, like missing black children from here, or like how people have been displaced and their wealth was literally cut off because of things like Vinegar Hill. If people got as outraged towards those things as they are against Dr. West, then we would actually be moving forward.
Or the gentrification that's
Yeah.
going on here in Charlottesville that they're trying to lie about and say it's not happening.
That is a perfect
And
segue.
I think in the future, Wes will be a hero, like many
just
of
like-
the people in our.
Just
yeah.
like when you look back at, like I said, Martin Luther King, if you look back at the things that they said, not the I Have a Dream speech, but everything else that came along when he first came into power as a young man, Wes is in good company of doing whatever it is that he wants to do.
Sometimes it takes historical perspective for people to realize true heroism.
You have to
to your
possess.
point.
You really have to possess the ability, and I think I do a good job of this. But the ability of looking at things from all sides, right? It's part of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in, because everyone thinks I'm right and you're wrong.
That's right.
But
That's
if
right.
I'm willing to look at my perspective and your perspective, and then figure out how we can come to a mutual ground, then now we're going somewhere.
I love that. I love that. Gerard Smith, welcome to the program. Board of Supervisors, soon to be Gerard. I mean that, baby.
Hey.
Yes.
Todd Cadell, welcome to the
Yes.
program. Dr. Bobby from UVA. Matthew Carter. James Watson. Love you, James Watson. Dominique Struther says, Charles is my guy. That's my guy, Charles.
My man.
It's my guy too.
Wade Lewis, when the black man stands and becomes pointed out for it, he becomes dangerous to the white man because they will not stand for being second to anything. Wade Lewis, thank you for sharing that perspective. Dominique
point.
wants Charles to talk more. Martin Harkless giving some love to the program. Everett Wilson says that's key. I love the show that's happening now. A lot of folks want to talk Vinegar Hill. Let's start open-ended, ladies first. Anywhere you want to go.
I think I'm going to let the fellas lead on this one.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Charles, you want to go?
Sure, yeah, I'll
Okay.
definitely jump in it. Vinegar Hill, as for those who may not have studied it, it is like many other places. So what happened here, to the folks, and you all can look it up. It's very well documented without going too deep, down that path of describing the history. But essentially, black folks after emancipation believed that they were on an even playing field. So in many communities, many cities around the country, whether we migrated from the South to other places, wanted to start a better life, since that time, and it still happens today, people see that there's still many obstacles put up in order for them not to succeed, because there's still people that are ingrained and rooted in society, even in Charlottesville to this day, that do not, like Razor just said, do not want to be second to anyone else. Like they still want that supremacy. They want to make this country what they think it should be, right? So with Vinegar Hill being displaced, I want to take it from the aspect of what that did to our community, what that did to our people, right? So you're talking about black businesses, right? So you're talking about people who were independent, who weren't asking for, really weren't asking for a thing. And of course, it was a full community, meaning I'm not saying everybody was rich. Of course, that wasn't the case. You had the fullness of any neighborhood, any community. And that was just one part of Charlottesville. But in saying that, the way that it was done by the city, to me, it's more than reasonable for people to say, hey, there needs to be some reparation, keyword, of some magnitude. Because you got to remember that, so over the last few decades, you went from actually having property that you really could say that was yours. You had a community to where black people trusted each other. That's another thing some people may not like, but that's one thing about Charlottesville, and I've grown up here, since I was a kid, being right here, going to track, over where Trax was, where the Music Resource Center used to be there.
Love Trax.
Yeah, so I've seen it to where how cliquish we can be. And that stigma comes from black people all around the world when it comes to if you feel discriminated against, you are then going to act out on and take that out on whoever you can take it out on, and it may be your neighbor. So the impact today of Vinegar Hill to me has been just that, on how you went from owning and being proud of it to now struggling to even being able to afford to start your small business here in Charlottesville. Amen. So that's what I feel like we have to deal with, that impact from Vinegar Hill.
All right, tough act to follow. All right, to piggyback off of what Charles says, we had an infrastructure. And for whatever reason, when you take African Americans and you put them together, and back then we had our doctors, our lawyers, we had everything in our own community that we need, so our money circulated just like other nationalities. The Chinese do it. Everybody does it except for African Americans now. You know, we don't keep our money. We're quick to spend it outside to everybody else. But back then we used to have an infrastructure, and we had, what was it, Tulsa?
Tulsa,
yeah,
Tulsa,
Oklahoma,
yeah.
Which was Black Wall Street, and then you had places in North Carolina that was the same thing, where we had thriving communities. Now, you take Vinegar Hill. For some reason, other nationalities do not like when African Americans get together and go back and forth taking care of themselves. For whatever reason, it's a threat. I have no idea why. I mean, it's no different than anybody else does. But for some reason, they don't like. I'll go as far as to jump subject real quick. I'll go as far as to say, even when you see 4 or 5 black people in a parking lot, the police will pull up and disperse and say, hey, what are you doing? But you might see 6 or 7 jacked up trucks with people hanging out, running around the parking lot, and they don't do anything. It used to be a law where not more than 5 black people could congregate at one time, and that still goes on to today, even though it's not a law. So when it comes to building the infrastructure of being able to have self-wealth amongst yourself, where I can go borrow money from Charles and don't have to borrow from somebody else, greedy people that don't look like us say, no, I need to tap into that. And the only way for me to dismantle that is to burn it to the ground, destroy it, displace it, take away the strongest of you, the elders, and then I'll leave the women and I'll give them services, child support, I'll give them all these different things. Now the government and these other entities become the husbands of the family. So then when the young man gets out of jail, because that's where they like to send, you know, or at least give you a felony, and I take that young lady and her family and put her into housing, then I say, okay, the man can't come back or you're going to lose housing. So now what is she going to choose? She going to choose her children, or she going to choose the man that she loves? She's a mother. She has to take care of home. So now the man is out here trying to figure out what he can do so he can be man enough to come back into his family. So now we have a hood created because we got people on the corner trying to create money so that they can move their family out of this situation. But it has a glass ceiling on it. And one of the biggest components of that, and the Democrats, I'm not a Republican, but the Democrats have figured out a way to put that glass ceiling over top of us to where they say, okay, I'm gonna use Max for instance. I'm gonna send you to school. I'm gonna give you a car, I'm gonna give you education, I'm gonna give you all these things. But if you get a job that's over $12,000, you gotta move out of here. How's she gonna survive out here? It makes no sense. So when it comes to us having a place like Vinegar Hill or a black infrastructure that we can take care of ourselves, it's not something that's wanted. It's a threat for whatever reason, because at that point, people can't capitalize on you.
I think what's important to remember here is that the remnants of Vinegar Hill are still felt, right? And so you have to consider, pardon me, you have to consider how many people ended up in jail as a result of Vinegar Hill because they turned to maybe selling drugs versus being able to run their own business or work at a business, right? So they went to jail out of reason of necessity. They needed to provide for their family
Survival of the fittest.
versus, yeah, I just want to become a criminal, right? So the remnants are felt. How many people ended up being homeless? How many people hungry? How many people died? You know, the remnants are still felt. We're looking at a lot of the same generations of families that were affected by Vinegar Hill that are now in some of our public housing properties,
Absolutely.
right? who are paying rent on something that will never be theirs. And so it kind of, the issues, the problem, the effects of it continue to go on and on. And I think that it's important for the city to recognize that and not necessarily make it right, but certainly put some things into place that allows these people, allows the black community or those affected to be able to sustain themselves and have equal opportunity and to get a leg up in the world.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a historical perspective and throw it to you here.
Okay.
In 1965, the entire Vinegar Hill neighborhood was raised as part of urban renewal, a plan initiated by the City of Charlottesville in the 50s. One church, 30 businesses, 158 families were displaced, almost all African-American families. 600 people were then immediately moved to public housing. Generational impact. Small businesses creating jobs for the African-American community, driving revenue, taking away homes. Homes could be leveraged to create other companies through
send your kids to
leveraging
college.
equity.
Send your kids to college.
Send kids to college. Pass houses down to offspring,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the next generation. Generational impact.
Yeah, the bubble, right? Like the first thing I think about the bubble, just like
The hamster
yeah,
wheel.
Yeah. It's just about a decade ago. We had we had a housing bubble, and like there's a phrase in the streets where you don't want to be outside the bubble on some things.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so when you look at urban renewal / gentrification, which is a polarizing term, those things created that bubble. And the thing that we have to remember is that it's always presented very, very nicely.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like people are told, oh, like when you get these brand new apartments. And
they always
like,
put in
get
a
your own
store
neighborhood.
first. They always put in stores first.
Right. You have a new
To
store.
have some place for you to come. That's how you always know gentrification is coming. I'm a union electrician. I was one of the guys that they bring in to do the work. Charles is absolutely right with this bubble. The first thing that they want to do is, we're going to give you your own stuff right here. And the store does not match the neighborhood. Dead giveaway that gentrification is getting ready to happen.
Yeah, and then also the value there as well. So you can paint that pretty picture, but remember, when this bubble is created, the people inside the bubble really know where the benefit is coming from, and that and those effects of that urban renewal is what we're still seeing today in Charlottesville, right?
That's right.
Like when we see those high rises coming up right now as we speak, but people are still asking for that affordable housing, And I do know, shout out to Mayor Walker, because I do know that one of the things that she was trying to get was that when the developers come through, that there be some sort of a pot or like a stipend.
Absolutely.
That
Yep.
to where some of that made would then also go into developing affordable housing.
Yeah, affordable housing fund.
Right,
Yeah.
affordable housing fund. And so that's the thing to remember is even right now, and one thing that I like to say that I'll end this with is that now we're smart enough, we're educated enough to learn from history, to not repeat past mistakes. So now we have to be able to see that and be able to buy in. Now, this is where I see the positives of gentrification, of urban renewal, is that when you are able to benefit from that, you follow what I'm saying? And not just be the victim of it, meaning that there's people at home now, like with the in-home daycare, or they may be, they may have a license, they may have a small business, whatever the case is. So now when you see those luxury condos coming into your neighborhood and somebody's maybe offering you a couple $100,000 for your property, you got to think to yourself, this is going to be worth a lot more money down the road if I hold on and realize that now this community is looking more attractive.
A perfect example is a microcosm is Fifeville. I mean, look at what's happening in Fifeville. Look at 10th and Page. 10th and Page is completely different now than it was, 15, 20 years ago? 10th and Page, a historically African-American neighborhood. I go down 10th and Page now, not so much anymore. Throw 10th and Page to you. I mean, throw this topic to you, Charles. Chasing the short-term cheddar versus the long-term gold.
Right.
You know, selling your crib or your house for, like you said, let's use the number 200K, when you know in 10 or 15 years, if you hold on to it, it could be $500,000. Whether you're black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian, how do you not?
I'm sure that's in a song.
Chiggy. I think it was Chiggy. Yeah, the rapper. Yeah.
Actually, Tribe Called Quest was first. I said.
Was it Tribe Called Quest first?
Fife Dog said it.
It's Fife, but I won't go correct you on your own show.
Yeah, you should correct me.
I was gonna get him, though.
Please correct me. You corrected me on my logic of putting a championing a heroic person in the African American community next to Robert E. Lee.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to what you had to say, and I agree with you.
Okay.
Changed
Well,
my
thanks.
mindset. Throw 10th and Page to you. Throw what's happening in Fifeville to you, because it's changing.
Yeah. And trust me, I've been a victim of this, of myself. Not victim, but I've been guilty of this myself, of seeing that nice lump sum and being young and immature and being like, man, like I could do.
Let's get after it.
I can do a lot of fun stuff with that, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about that knowledge and us being a village, right? And educating each other. Yeah, because think about it. Some folks are still paying on that mortgage, or some folks were when they inherited their property were behind on taxes,
That's
or what
right.
have you. So penalties have incurred. So that $200K you're talking about is going to dwindle pretty fast.
Yeah.
And also when you sell, you pay taxes on that.
That's right.
People don't tell you that.
That's
So
right.
so then you're looking at next to little enough. You think about the debts that you probably have, the bills you still got to pay. So then that money is gone before you know it. So right. So then we got to look at the bigger picture. If we have those talents, those businesses, that we can benefit from that urban renewal and not be victims of it. And lastly, what I'll say is that if we do decide to sell, not wasting that money, then taking that money that we
And
do
investing.
make and reinvesting it. Yes.
Max, I can't wait to hear what you got to say on
Yeah,
this.
I don't have much to say, but in this scenario, this is where education is important, right? Because with historically our background of being slaves and working for free and not knowing how to use money, to being set free and not having any money, to just expecting to thrive in the world, like we don't always have the knowledge of how to use our money, invest our money, spend our money, save our money, different things like that. So to our defense, there's some people that are just operating off of ignorance, and they know that the way to the American dream or a happy life is money. So they're off to the races. So that's really all that I have to add to it. And I think there are a lot of people in our community who are doing a fantastic job of making sure that the Black community is educated on how to properly use, spend, and make their money work for
That's
them.
what I love what Linda Harrell is doing with New Hill Development Corp.
Yolanda.
Yolanda, sorry.
Harrell.
Yolanda Harrell.
She a
Thank
friend.
you
She
for
a
Yeah,
friend.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
get it right,
Thank
Jerry.
you
You got to get it
She's
right.
calling the show, and I'm sorry, Yolanda. Yolanda, I know it's Yolanda.
Yeah.
She is pivoting her model at New Hill, and now the model is about building infrastructure, educational infrastructure for the community, and showing how we can take the money, keep it in the community, educate the community, and say this is how you compound money and take it to another level. I loved that mindset. And you know what? When she came on the show, and it was so unfortunate, is she mentioned that some folks were giving her grief
Absolutely.
in the African American
That's-
community.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
what I was thinking. So that's what I want to tell our people, particularly. And this is something that has resonated, since we were here yesterday, is that we have to stop being so cliquish and stop hating on each other and support each other. I'm looking dead into the camera. Stop being so cliquish
Yeah.
and hating on each other and support each other. Because just like we talked about, Dr. Bellamy earlier, you're not going to understand or agree with the process of everything, but let's start looking at the end goal. Look at the bigger picture. Just like we talked about urban renewal. The small picture is how much fast cash I can get. The big picture is what wealth can I build for my family, right? So it's the same thing with New Hill. What you don't understand, there's meetings, there's emails, there's open door policies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the end goal is so important. Whether you like somebody or not that's on the board, it shouldn't matter.
Can I tag on to something that you said? Charles and I had talked about something one time before, and that was kind of utilizing where you are. It's no secret that a lot of African American young boys sell drugs and do different things, but this is what they need to look at. In order to get to that point where Charles is talking about, where you can purchase this land and be use what's going on to your benefit, is you need to stop doing what you're doing. You look at it a different way. If you want to sell drugs that bad, then go out here and apply for these loans for if marijuana turns legal in Virginia, you have one of the cards to sell
Be
it.
an entrepreneur.
I didn't
If
know where you was
wanna-
going, Ray.
I know. Hey, look. If you want to steal,
sell
no, just hear me out for a second. This is why they call me razed. If you want to steal cars, okay, you love cars that bad, go out here and get you a used dealership and sell these cars. These shade tree mechanics, get them these certifications at these Votech schools so that y'all can actually do insurance work when people wreck their cars and stuff. We need our own African American tow company and I was getting ready to call the name.
I have a feeling
you're
you're going to say I don't think we should say it.
Hey,
but
maybe a sponsor.
No, they're not a sponsor, and they will never be a sponsor. That's dirty, what they do.
We need around the city. We need the infrastructure set to where there's things that we do on a regular basis that we can build ourselves up. You just have to change the narrative. There's certain things you just got to do it differently. That's all it is. The difference between something being illegal and legal is what the powers that be says is legal or illegal. Moonshine, alcohol, ABC, it used to be the same way. There's different ways that you can do certain things. You don't have to do what you're doing and fill the prison systems. And then, because you're going in there and working for pennies on the dollar for Bob Barker's company and everybody else anyway. So why don't you invest in yourself, which will invest in your community? And then we won't be having these conversations like
Brian Jones says the first to pull down a successful black man is another black man. Put it in the feed right now.
Actually, it's the black woman to me, and this is going to be unpopular, and that's because so many of, and I fell victim to this myself, not saying I was perfect, but you have situations to where when you have a young black boy, the first time he sees a black male getting tore down is when his mom and dad are going through something. So then when child support was created for the right reason, but it's been abused to no end. So when he sees—
What do you mean by that?
Child support, they don't monitor where child support goes. Like, it can be spent on groceries and food. Gotcha. It can be spent on hairdos and nails. It doesn't matter. Once the money goes over, they don't monitor how it goes anyway. But
You upsetting some moms out there.
I could care less. You're my wife.
It's
I ain't
my
got to
money.
answer nobody
Yeah,
else.
right to hear my
That's
voice. I want to.
what it is. Shouldn't have gave me a
Charles,
microphone.
should we leave right now?
Shouldn't have gave me a microphone. But like, honestly, that young black boy that you love so much that you want to take pictures of him and show him off to the world, when you tear down his dad and he looks like his dad, what do you think he's going to do when he gets older and a woman treats him bad? Then you want to fuss and say, ain't no woman going to treat my son like this. Well, he don't know nothing else.
I got you.
What do you think about that?
So it comes from the black woman first. I mean, she builds him up, she protects him, but at the same time, she's messing with his mental state. You can't build his body up and mess his mind up. That's why so many black men, when they pass other people, black men don't speak to one another. They put their head down. Like, you may walk past me, and I'm shuffling to get out the way to let you by just because of your color. I mean, that's the conversations black people have amongst themselves that they don't want to talk out nowhere.
Ahmad Hawkins has made this point on this show so many times, and he is successful and he's a leader. And he has said oftentimes he has found that with his success and his leadership, it is breeding a sense of jealousy within the community.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
That always happens. Yeah, and to Razor's points, you know, I mean, like, there's a lot of truths there, you know, and it's true in its own right. Now, I don't agree with that's where it starts, or like that's the first to tear us down, but definitely what he said is totally valid. And I will just touch on that there's a lot of reform that's needed when it comes to things like welfare in general. And child support is also, you know, just to make sure that it's not used as
abused
as a permanent crutch. You follow what I'm saying? Like there's I don't agree with anything that's gonna keep someone like in a lane that's not, you know, that's not encouraging them to better themselves, you know, across the board, reform, but, you know, but to directly, the origin and the first to tear down, you know, a black male, you know, like, I definitely have to take that back to slavery if we're talking about the black American male.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so I think that's really the origin of it. And I think everything since then has been, you know, the collateral damage.
Would you say effect?
And
this was a
systematic.
cause and this was a effect.
right,
Something
right,
that you said yesterday.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Definitely. So we get to the root of the issue. That's the cause. And yeah, so the relationship between a lot of black women and men is the effect of that, because we have to remember that the black male worldwide, and please do your research, how strong that DNA is on how, you know, like when there's an interracial child, and this may get some comments, when there's an interracial child, those African genetics are the strongest.
That's why they used to castrate them.
Right.
Hang
Black
us
men used to be
and
castrated.
cut your wang off.
Like, so people know this. And so for the black man to be berated and to be demeaned and made to be seen as weak in front of his wife and his children.
Oh, buck breaking.
Yeah. And
they rape him on the street
community.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. The Willie Lynch documents. If you've never heard of those, look those up. PDFs are online on how there was communication of slave owners on how to break black men, because they know genetically and mentally and physically how strong we actually are. So we had to be broken in front of everybody to get to a point to where your kids will not respect you. Your woman will not respect you.
It's not. If I can add on to you, Charles, 'cause I love that point that you're making. Charles is absolutely right. When they break the black man, and then the mother who loves her child says, "Don't do this because I don't want that to happen to you." So now he can't go to as high as he possibly could because he's already following parameters that he can't see because of fear of what might happen to him if he gets to a certain point.
Yeah, so I certainly believe that the issue of one black male or female tearing the next one down definitely goes back to slavery, right? Because what did all the slaves pretty much want to do is be in the good graces of massa, because that just maybe ensured somewhat of a better life for me. So that's what we have like inherently started to do to one another. Now we do it way too often. It is not conducive to anything, and it's been hard for us as a people to understand that we need to come together in order to accomplish, the social justice that we're looking for, or what have you. Why it's so difficult for us to do? I can only take it back to slavery, but we do it way too much. We don't oftentimes consider how other races view us because of that, how much we hold ourselves back because of that, and it's really only a setback. It's really only a further setback. That crabs in the barrel mentality. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
How many other races get titles like we do? Mm-hmm. If somebody acts a certain way, oh, that's ghetto. Mm-hmm. If we start talking about affordable housing, like I said yesterday, it automatically goes to people that look like us. Mm-hmm. It's just so many things that if your wife gets upset, is she going to be called an angry white woman? But if Max do it, or Mayor Walker, or Tanisha, they're an angry black woman. Like, we get labeled with so many tags that, there's no need of nobody naming you when you're born, because they're going to give you tags when you grow up anyway.
Yeah, and we definitely, like Max said, we also use it as an excuse a lot. But so shout out to all the, black women and men that are respecting each other and loving each other. Definitely shout out, because it's hard. And the last thing I'll say is that like the modern day version of being broken is that man going out looking for that job and being constantly told no when he knows that he qualifies for it. Or
not getting the mortgage.
Right, not getting the mortgage. You got to go home and say, yeah, we got to keep renting. We can't be homeowners yet. Or when you go into a store and you get followed, like all that builds up in your psyche, mm-hmm. and then you start feeling less and less. It makes you angry. Yep. You take it home, take it out. So shout out to all those keeping, black love.
And we're not even talking about mortgages. What about if your children ask you, let's go to the fair, the carnival, the movies, McDonald's?
Or what about when a black man or a black woman is walking down the street and a white person is walking down the other way and they walk on the other side of the road?
Oh, we say you get so numb to that and you're used to it. Like it's expected. Or you speak to people and they just look you in your face and keep walking. Like, you can't tell racism until you've already experienced it. One of the most fearful things I've seen out of my wife and other black women is the first time that their child is going to have to experience racism. The first time they may be called the N-word, or the first time that somebody might treat them different. Because when they come home, I would hear her say it all the time, and other mothers, is your teacher nice to you? You know what I'm saying? Because they don't have no control over that. Because at that point, once the child is in the classroom, if she's mean to him, by the time the child really want to say something, because he doesn't want to get in trouble. So now he's forced to hold something that he was not meant to hold. And that's the responsibility of racism. And then it carries right on up the ladder.
Yeah, and one of the things I would like to add real quick is, because Razor mentioned about us being tagged and labeled and picked on. There's a book, and I was sitting here trying to remember, but you can kind of look it up. But there's a book that it was written by a European male, and it was talking about the history of immigration, because he was tackling the current issue of immigration. And the fact of the matter is that like Americans of European descent have a history that sort of was then passed down to people of African descent, mm-hmm. meaning that like at one point it was the Italians that was considered, like the N-word of society.
Yeah.
Do your history.
It was called
right?
Nugard.
Right. And then
that's the word they
like,
use.
Then you can go through history, like the Polish. There was always someone being picked on and being used, and work being benefit off of their back. Right, so it goes through history, and until we get to the point where we are now, to where now it's Mexicans, Hispanics, people of Latin descent. So,
a lot of people watching. Let's relay some of the commentary. I'm gonna throw this question out there. James Watson is a huge supporter of this show. He said, in a city that is 10 square miles, with a university as a major employer and retirees with money, along with new IT companies coming up, How do we create jobs for folks to attain solid paying jobs and reasonable housing across all races? I would love to hear the panel discuss this topic. Brian Gannell says Charles Lewis for mayor. Chris Davis says, Charles, your class and dignity are an inspiration for all of us. Dominique has given you some props. Troy, your page is blowing up. Is it Carissa Childress?
Yes.
She says, yes, Troy. Preach, Troy. You're on point, Troy. You're getting some props from Pierre Richardson. The show is on fire. I look forward to listening to this on my lunch break. I love what's happening right here, a much-needed discussion. Give it a like and a share on any of the topics and on any of the channels you're watching. We have 2 city councilors. We have Bellamy Brown. And we have Charlottesville City Hall watching right now. Just to add some Max. Okay.
You need to.
Hey, Charles, sit like this.
Just letting you know, okay? Give it a like, give it a share, Max. I love you. All right. How about the creating jobs topic? Charles, you want to touch on that one? I mean, we got a thriving community, right?
Yeah.
But historical amnesia. Leontine Clay-Peck just put in the feed. She's coming on the show in September. Yeah. Ingrid Fegan says this show is on point. We got a great employer. Mm-hmm. State Farm's got their second largest office. Mm-hmm. CFA's here. 2 major hospitals. Mm-hmm. We got Joffrey Woodruff across the street that is building like a tech incubator. Mm-hmm. Charlottesville Ice Park is turning into the center of developing entrepreneurs code.
Yeah,
I mean, it's booming. Mm-hmm. How do we create jobs for all races?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start in the mirror. I'm going to start with our people. If we're talking about now, are you asking creating jobs like in general, or are you talking about particularly the urban community?
Anywhere you want to go.
Okay. Well, let me start with our people, which is be prepared. Study to show yourself approved. Study to show yourself approved.
Absolutely.
Meaning, there's a game to play, like in life, the game of life, and you can't change the rules until you're in the game, or until you're coaching the game, or until you're an owner or a manager in the game. You follow what I'm saying? And so that's important. So that means when you go on that job interview, be prepared. Know how to prepare. And even before the job interview, like when you're studying, like Razed was saying earlier, we have so many smarts and so many talents of what we could be doing, but of course, because of pressures of life, we get pressed into maybe legal activity or things that we otherwise wouldn't do. But if we can garner that support as a community, as a village, to support our young people through mentoring and all that kind of stuff, there's plenty of organizations out there that can do that. So that's where it starts, is us being prepared once we go in, being presentable, right? So that you can be able and be experienced and to get that job or whatever the case is. Now, moving from that, we also have to remember that Charlottesville is a place to where it can be dressed up very, very nicely. It looks pretty on the surface, right? So there's a lot of great employers, like you just said, that are here. And there's a lot of people here who are employed by them, right? So I feel like that getting the job, and if you feel discriminated against, fighting against that, all that's available here in Charlottesville. To me, the deeper thing is being able to live in Charlottesville. You follow what I'm saying? And so being that we need to work on that of being strong enough and knowledgeable enough to be able to ask for that salary or that wage that we rightfully deserve. And that starts with people who are in management, in HR and things like that, taking it upon themselves as well to be fair about things. So to me, like, that's the biggest job issue right now, is that fair wages for Charlottesville.
Love that. Max, I think there is no more marginalized demographic than I think the black female. Mm-hmm. And that's safe to say. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. You are successful and just a badass. I mean, I absolutely mean that. And people are putting it on the feed. I'm very curious to hear your topic on this, your take on this.
The way that we create jobs, so there's a few components I think matter. I think education is a big one, right? We've seen in our news how some may believe that our education system is failing us, right? And it sounds like they're making some movements towards fixing that problem, right? But I think education, yeah, in our local city schools. So I think education is one. I think being able to offer trades is another one. I think one thing that people kind of can't safeguard against is the employer that they are applying
That's
for
right.
the job for, right? So if you apply for something where the person that's doing the hiring already has picked out what their employees look like and what they sound like and what they talk like and what they dress like and things like that, then you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. So I think it also requires an even playing field when it comes to that, right? And then I think the other part of that, and this may sound corny, but for African American people or people in general to be able to believe in the fact that they are able to go out and get these jobs.
You're
'Cause
saying hope?
sometimes that's
Have hope?
right, right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
People don't
just-
think they're smart enough.
just the thought of going out and applying for a job that I may not qualify for or may challenge me or this, whatever the situation might be, sometimes that's a hindrance all in itself. So then
Amen.
we sit at home and then we get into other things to generate money and then, it's just a snowball effect. But I think those things certainly help.
Neil, I'll throw this to you, Razor. Neil Williamson from the Free Enterprise Forum, he says the unemployment rate in Charlottesville, Virginia was 2.7% in May 2019. 2.7% is low. I don't think that statistic is truly indicative of all people in our community.
Right. So if that 2.7% is 95% black or people of color, and how can it be considered low? When it comes to like the job creation, I'm a little different than the way the two of them look at it. Like me and Charles have this conversation all the time. I believe everybody needs to, even if you work for somebody, you need to have a business. Everybody has an entrepreneur inside them. There's something that you do, knitting, fixing cars, washing
passion.
cars. Yeah, there's something that you like to do that can turn into money. Somebody needs
Amen.
that service.
Right.
So I'm a huge component of starting your own businesses. And I always talk about it. We do a business segment on In My Humble Opinion to where we say, look, just get the tax ID number down the road, because sooner or later they're going to figure out, just like they do in every other way, that, okay, this demographic of people is making themselves self-sufficient and we can't tax it. So what am I going to do? Tax ID numbers are free right now. When you first pull it up, yes, you're going to have the headhunter companies that say for $99 I can do this for you. Keep searching down till you see .gov. It's free. I did my first two businesses on a flip cell phone. So get that tax ID number before they start charging you to start your own business, which is going to push a lot of people out by default, because they want businesses. They don't have a job right now. So how do I get started? Because African Americans have a tendency of saying, well, one day, I have a friend, Casey Lewis, that has a company started, Make One Day Today. And I really believe that. Whatever that one day
great.
is, make that one day today.
Right.
So start your businesses, get into the trades like Max said, because you're already doing them. When you don't have money to go out here and pay somebody to do something for you, you learn how to do it yourself. That is a business. You're already a business owner. You just don't have any clients yet. And then talk to people that's already made it. Even if they tell you no or they look at you funny, make them tell you no. Come hell or high water. What's yours is yours. That's how you got to go after it.
Sean Jenkins watching the show right now. We love Sean Jenkins
Yeah.
from Soul Food Joint.
Chef
he came
Sean.
on this program and he effing crushed it. He says, I love everything that's happening right here. Start your own business. Stop applying for jobs. Start your own
Absolutely.
company. Dictate your future. Sean, I effing love you, Sean.
And when it comes to those businesses that you were talking about, the only way that you could have a playing field, which I don't see this happening, is like you'd have to say, okay, if I'm going to hire 100 people, I'm going to divide it. 10 black people, 5 women, 5 men. 10 white people, 10 every nationality. That's the only way you can get an absolute playing field. But that doesn't exist, because now you're telling people that own the company what they have to do. And we saw what happened when the government tried to tell companies what to do. They moved the companies to Mexico, and they moved them to different places where they didn't have to pay taxes and stuff the same.
Robert Gray, welcome to the show. You should handle this one here. Dominic Strother says, no business can be created in Charlottesville because Virginia is overregulated. I disagree with that.
I disagree with it too. Now it depends on Dominic. That's my man. So I met him through Charles. The certain things are regulated heavy. So let's say, for instance, if we were to take
He says, he adds this to you with your answer. He says, meaning most minorities don't have the money to navigate the legal system to get a business started because there is so much red tape.
Well, see, and that's where education comes in, like Max was saying. You have companies like the CIC that
Community Investment Collaborative.
Yeah, I'm a graduate of it. Max is as well. That if you go through this program, they reduce the money so low for you to be able to go to school. And then you have the infrastructure in place to help you succeed along the way. And they teach you how to get the loans. They even have money set aside to help you. So a lot of the reasons that we don't feel is that, not to offend anybody, you see a lot of us riding around in 1984 Mercedes with 26-inch rims, big stereo system pulling up into front of a trailer, or low-income housing. So we mismanage where we place our money at. Education is a huge factor. When you keep somebody from knowing something, like they used to say, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book, because it was illegal for us to read at one point in time. So when you educate somebody and you say, okay, these are the avenues that will give you money besides social services or doing a legal activity, and you teach them, okay, if you do this, then I can give you this. If you do this, I can give you that. A lot of times when we bring paperwork to somebody, we don't have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed because we don't know any better. And I believe there's things that have happened here recently in Charlottesville that's the reason that took place too. We don't exactly have everything the way that it needs to be put for the powers that be. So when that happens, we get upset, but we kind of accepted certain things along the way. Ebonics was one of them. Oh, that's just the way they talk, so we're going to change the curriculum to let Ebonics come into play so they can get an education. But then when they go take their SATs and they test, we're not giving them Ebonics. Like they teach word memorization in schools now, instead of teaching phonics where you sounded the word out. Didn't matter if it was 15 syllables long. You could sound it out and tell what that word is. Now they send home 10 words at a time. So if those 10 words aren't on the test that I'm taking, I seem like an idiot.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, the only
sorry.
thing I was going to add to that comment that you received there is that it's not to offend anyone, but it's that type of limitation or cap that you place on yourself.
Same
which
mindset.
Is what holds a lot of us back, right? So that's when you look for the options, you do your research, you do your homework, and you figure out where there's a will, there's a way, right? So I just,
you can't go through the door,
it's
go around
that
the
type
back.
of mentality that holds us back.
Yeah. Y'all keep saying not to offend anyone. Sometimes people need to be offended.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to get in them britches, as my grandmother used to say. So, but, yeah, because to me, it's like, I agree with what's been said, but also that accountability part. Because when Dominique talked about the capital, there's so many ways. We are, as far as by demographic, we are the biggest spenders.
Yeah.
On
spend money
on sort of miscellaneous, wasteful kind of stuff.
2.3 trillion dollars a year.
Yes, it's something like that. So what I'm saying,
a brand new car depreciates 40% as soon as you drive it off the lot.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So,
but we ain't buying brand new cars.
Yeah, so
we run the buy here, pay here sector.
Yeah, so the capital is there, right? The capital is there. The issue, and I agree with creating the businesses as well. One thing I always talk to Razed about is one part that goes into that is that creating that business too. There's nothing wrong with having sort of a side hustle because you do have things like insurance and all those kind of things that sometimes when you first start and you gotta think economically. But my point though is that with the capital that we actually have, we have to be supporting each other. Culturally, I look at some of my Hispanic friends that come. The families, everybody that they know is working together for that business.
Remember how everybody used to make fun of them being all in the same house?
Yeah.
But then after a while, they own 6 houses on the block.
Right. Start off in that same house with a bigger picture of knowing, we're going to build wealth. And then we're all going to have our own stuff. Like culturally, that's how you have to think. We have to support each other.
Absolutely.
And stop. And that's definitely number one. And then when we have a business too, we have to be able to have a business. Not just a black business. You may be a black business owner and you could be proud of that and do things to uplift other black businesses, but operate as a business, meaning that we need to be fair with each other.
That's right.
If I'm going to go down the street and pay $50, I need to pay $50 at your black business as well.
Right.
Love it. Bernard Hankins says SCORE offers free business mentorship. Consider SCORE. What Charles said, you're getting some props here. Troy, your page is blowing up here as well. One more topic. Sean says your greatest investment will always be your relationship with those you do have. One more. We're 71 minutes in. I know you're gonna. Let me throw it. Last one here.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
71 minutes in, and no commercials either.
Right.
Just going straight. This topic is coming up on a number of feeds here. What can we do to make the downtown mall more inclusive to people of all races? So there was a recent survey that came out 6 months ago or so. I think it said, and you can find it online, that roughly 42% of African Americans do not feel comfortable coming to the downtown mall or included on the downtown mall. And I'm going to cut to the chase. I cannot think, and you corrected me yesterday, I cannot think of one like music venue or restaurant or like bar or watering hole of any kind, nightclub I guess is a good terminology, that is like focused for African Americans.
But I thought about that yesterday.
Is there one?
No, I thought about
He
what
said
Charles
art
said
show.
yesterday.
He said art gallery, right?
Yeah,
And-
our gallery and Sean's soul food
Soul
joint is
food
on market.
joint.
That's
Right.
But
Okay,
he's
Sean's.
inside.
He's inside the salad maker.
Yeah, he's
Listen,
inside a
I thought about
place.
that yesterday, and we have the ability to blend, right? Or
What do
at
you mean by
least be
that?
able to maneuver to
You're
be
talking
accepted,
code switching,
to be
code switching?
accepted in
Yeah.
certain white spaces, right? We
You're saying you know how to play the game.
We're right. So we have that ability. So I don't
Where you going with
necessarily
this?
know. No, I'm just saying, like, I
Okay.
don't necessarily know how many places there are for people of color on the downtown mall, because for those that can't code switch, as you referred to it, are they welcome? Do they feel welcome? Is it a place they want to frequent?
I'm gonna take it another step. Max and I were down there with our business, and people wanted to ask, "How did you get down here?" You know, like the downtown mall is not set for African Americans. It just isn't. Like, people want to know we would get asked all kind of questions. How much money you make? How'd you get down here? Are you tied to somebody else? Did this person put you down here? It was like we weren't good enough to just pay money, buy apparatus, go through the health department, pay the city, and set up for business and sell product. Nah, that wasn't good enough. So I mean, it comes out, and then you have to keep a smile on your face. Everybody you speak to, whether it was our 2-year-old trying to say hi to somebody and they walk by them and don't want to talk to them, or us, people just ignore you. Like, I mean, it is what it is. The downtown mall for Charlottesville is set for a certain demographic of people, and they would prefer to keep it that way.
That needs to change.
Yeah, and that has to be a cultural shift, because your question was how do you make it more attractive or more inviting. So that cultural shift has to happen, because of course there's businesses down there that welcomes anyone with open arms, of course.
Yeah,
because
of cash.
You're
Because of
saying
economics.
money's
Yeah, that's because of economics. That ain't because of
color, but
I
green.
can't go there.
But in all fairness,
Can't go
though,
there.
but in all fairness, like just like we say that you can go into some businesses and they're following you, or they serve you last. Just like that happens, there's some places you can go into as well, and they treat you like everybody else. Like, we can't say everybody on downtown mall is racist.
Yeah, not everybody. No, I'm not saying
But
that.
But in saying that, we also got to remember that that means that we do have to follow up on that, creating businesses and spaces for our own. Or even if we don't own it, if there's management there, make sure the management is making those changes. If it's the pavilion, bringing in more acts and stuff.
I would have loved to
that's gonna
see
appeal.
Tanisha's event at the pavilion.
That would have been awesome.
It's at
That would've been
Tonsler
awesome.
Park, right?
Right.
If it was at the pavilion, that would have been like macro strategy that would have been needed for Charlottesville.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But see, that puts a light on it, though. When you put it right down there at the pavilion, that means people all over are going to see what's going on.
Which is
even
why
if
I
it's
would have
not-
loved to seen it there.
Right, but that's the problem. That's why it's having, in my humble opinion, why it's having problems getting steam with it as well. If you over at Tonsler, that's traditionally African American.
Right.
So it's okay for you to put it over there for a time frame.
It's like the
and a
city is
season.
stereotyping or typecasting the event before the event has even started.
Absolutely.
And it just pisses me off.
Well, I mean, we as African Americans go through that anytime, because like we'll have friends that, let's say for instance, I may go around you and 5 of your white friends, not saying you per se,
sure.
but you might say, oh yeah, Troy's a good guy. You just had to validate, because first they saw a black person, and you had to validate that I'm okay, I'm a good guy. Oh, I went to college with him. You have to, you can't just let me walk up and just be a black guy there.
Yeah. And the other thing is too that people need to stop is saying, is judging all black folks by maybe one black person who came in like with their pants around their knees and was yelling the N-word and using all kinds of profanity. If that scares you and you don't want that in your business, then that's understood. But don't judge a whole race of people by that, just like you wouldn't judge the white kid that's walking down there with all black dyed hair, long trench coat.
He just going through a phase
A
in
phase,
his life
yeah.
right
yeah,
now.
yeah. It's just a phase for him, you know. So let's just be fair across the board.
I think that a lot of the events that happen on the downtown mall, and a lot of stores that are created, are not done with us in mind, right? And you can walk into some of those establishments, or let's just take Fridays After 5, for example. You can walk by that event and look at those that are gathered there and the band that's playing there, and understand that, yeah, I wasn't really
Basically saying
considered
it's all white
when we, well, you know,
That's what you're
I'm not
saying.
saying that. You
Yeah,
said
I
that.
said, in
I
my
didn't
humble
say
opinion,
that.
it's all white people. It is all white people.
Hey, Charles, take a drink. Take a drink.
It is.
So
Yeah.
no, I was just going to. I agree with a lot of what Charles just said. I think that the people in charge of the events for Fridays After 5 have to make a conscious decision to encompass everyone when they consider the acts there. And I think that for the stores that are down there, then management or owners have to make a conscious decision to want to be able to be
This is coming
inclusive to
from
everybody.
me, okay?
Now,
Not
do
you.
they?
Come on, Kirby. Come on,
Oh,
Kirby.
he named
Kirby's
yeah.
cool.
Coming from me. Come on, Kirby.
You know, Kirby's cool. I will say I
Yeah.
had a conversation with Kirby, and he was straight up honest with me about how he tried to bring a gospel act stuff before and did
Yeah.
not get the support needed to really fund it. You know, so as a businessman, you know,
Yeah, he's got to sell tickets.
right.
Yeah, you gotta sell tickets,
and
yeah.
so that's why we as a community have to circulate our dollar as well. And the last thing I wanted to say about that is looking at a bigger picture of Charlottesville. We can't think so small-minded, right? Because the fact of the matter is that other cities, you know, unless it's like a metropolis, other cities aren't just focused on their city when it comes to revenue. Meaning that when we market, we need to be marketing to DC, we need to be marketing to Richmond, we need to be marketing all around to bring in revenue to Charlottesville. Because I tell you what, the Charlottesville dollar is not gonna do it. Like alone, as far as the black dollar, it's not gonna do it. I know all money is green, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, proverbial. So that's key. That's very important to stop thinking small and cliquish about Charlottesville and think that Charlottesville can be a home of things that where people from DC and Richmond will want to come here, and we don't have to go there.
And don't even get us started about that CACVB advertising campaign that featured nothing but white people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you see that campaign?
I think I did.
Yeah, that
Well-
campaign. It was not. I mean, I want to
Yeah.
get him.
That's
That's come from me. It's come from me. Okay?
His own opinion.
His own opinion. But that's a good prelude to what I wanted to talk about too. September 26th, 28th, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah.
We're bringing to the city of Charlottesville. It's called the Melting Pot.
Yeah.
You know, it's whether you like Virginia, hate Virginia, it started America. So we're essentially a melting pot here. What we're bringing is a bunch of DC. I had a mortgage company from Philadelphia contact me this morning, and some DC comedians. We're going to do an event September 28th, 26th, whatever that Saturday is, over at the Jefferson, where we're going to have different comedians, a host of like comedians that are on national TV and movies and everything. They'll come into here to perform. We're going to have a go-go band called Subtle Thoughts, which is more like jazz. It's not like the rah-rah go-go, just like something you can do. Order Up will be serving food that's from the DC area, so it'll be things called like your chicken and mumbo sauce, your crab cakes, your Ben's chili bowl, just different things. And we want to do that every single month. So that way, the next time it'll be like a Louisiana theme, so it'll be food from that place, and then
Love that.
Chicago, and then. But I think the very next one will be like Philadelphia comedians will be coming to Charlottesville, so we'll have steak and cheese, things of that nature. But contact, in my humble opinion, contact you, and we'll make sure everybody gets all the information, and so they can get the ticket
Tell
sales.
us about the idea you guys had about the Charlottesville hot dog.
That's me and
No,
Max.
that- yeah,
No,
go
that's me and
ahead.
Max. That's me
Go
and
ahead.
Max. For about a year, we wanted to give Charlottesville something besides August 12th.
Yeah.
And every major city has their own hot dog that they're known for. And Max and I have created the CVille dog.
Nice.
And so we're going to be at this event that I'm telling you, but we'll also be at CVille Weekly's Best of Charlottesville.
Yes.
And so if you want to know what the CVille dog is, don't ask me the ingredients because I'm not going to tell you. But
It's like
no,
bush baked bean.
absolutely, with the little
Yeah,
dog.
only Duke knows.
But Charlottesville, be proud
Yeah.
that now you will have your own hot dog just like
trying to
every
add
other
a little
major
peace
city.
and harmony to
I
the
love
city.
that.
Absolutely.
I love
But we're using all natural ingredients. We
Nice.
have different places that we deal with on a regular basis for these ingredients. But yeah, Charlottesville, you have your own hot dog now.
Anytime you guys want, seriously, anytime you guys want, open invitation. We can clear the schedule. If you want to talk about your events, the hot dog, anything you want at all.
Nice.
Seriously.
Appreciate that.
Just everything. Tyler Berry, your boy's watching right now.
Yeah. He been that's.
That's a chef. I try
What's
to pump
on
Max
this
the
hot
chef.
dog? That's what Tyler said. What is on this
he
hot
wants
dog?
to know is, come on, what you doing, Troy?
Hey, so do we have any time for a little rapid fire to make sure that we at least touch on a couple other questions?
Oh, yeah.
We can answer them real quick.
I don't even think we're going to get to all these questions, but
one question per person.
Yeah. You want to throw? You're going to ask the questions, or you want me to take them from the
Yeah, I was
feed?
saying if we can get a rapid fire.
Max, am I throwing rapid fire to you too?
You can.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You gotta be quick.
I'll
Yeah.
give my,
Let's
what if
get
I
it.
give my own comments? How about that?
Okay.
Can I give my own?
You
real
can
quick?
go
How much time we got
anywhere.
left?
How much time do you got?
Okay, not long.
I was going to say, not low. All right, the one, and I didn't bring this up because I wanted to be mindful.
Okay.
Okay, but one of them, why don't I throw this to Troy?
Okay.
One of them that's coming up is the Mayor Walker and the beef with Lloyd Snook.
Okay. Do you remember yesterday when we were talking about the guy who donated the statue?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, it was looked upon and found out and documented that this person sided with a certain side. You said he was a white supremacist. Okay. Now, I don't know. Paul McIntyre.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know Mr.
You just
Snook.
name drop with no
I
problem.
am.
Yeah. I don't know Mr.
What did you
Snook.
say? Sometimes you got to offend
Yeah,
to make
okay.
change.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
Some
people need to be offended.
I don't know Mr. Snook personally, but
His office right down the hall right here. Seriously.
If allegations have been made and they can be verified, then it is what it is. That's the way I look at that. So if anybody has said anything about somebody and you say, okay, Troy has on white pants, and you come around there and say, I got on white pants, it is what it is, whether I want you to tell it or not. So that's the way I look at that particular engagement between them two.
Should Mayor Walker have, from the mayor, most powerful elected position in the city, should she have had a say on someone who's running for council?
I think so, and this is the reason being. While I believe when you're at the top, you always make the deciding vote. If it's like even, then you make the final decision. But everybody that's on council, if I'm correct, is kind of under her. So just like a police chief, you need to know who's on your team. If you put something on your team that is going to undermine the goal for the city, you have a right to say something, or you'll be sitting there spinning your wheels and talking about nothing ever got done when you knew there was going to be a problem coming in the front door. That's the way I see it.
How about, good, respect.
Thank you.
This one's coming up on public housing and Section 8 housing in Friendship Court. Throw this to you here. Why do they put up bars around Friendship Court that make it look like we're in jail?
That's a great question. Hey, one of my favorite rap groups of all time, Goody Mob. CeeLo Green started in Goody Mob, and one of his lines was, I don't know if the gates were put up to keep crime out or keep us in.
Keep us in.
That's what he said on cell therapy. So and that's really like I think that is one of those, a piece of psychological warfare. Like at least the original idea. And I know you'll be able to find different reasons for why that may be there. But in my opinion, that's part of the psychological warfare to make you feel and think you're caged in.
It's like a dog on a chain.
Yeah.
Once he wear that little spot on, he don't really go past that no more. So that's what those bars are. Like, I ain't supposed to go out there.
We don't have enough time to really talk about my perspective. And
you got experience from this as professional.
And I really have an unpopular one. Every time I bring it up, I'm
I wanna
always
hear
catching
it.
flag for it.
Can we stream the rest?
Well,
I wanna hear it. Please.
No, well, all it is that I truly believe that public housing should be a stepping stone.
I agree.
And I truly believe that we should not have generations spending their life there. And I think that it should be, and maybe it'll move towards this in the future, but I think that people should be allowed to stay there for a certain amount of time in order to get their bearings and be prepared to go out into the world and survive, right? Now, I understand that certain things have to be in place in order to do that, and whether or not Charlottesville is prepared for that is questionable, right? But I do think that if we're living and dying in public housing, something's wrong, right?
Yes. Amen.
And I truly believe that the residents, and I mean this with all due respect, I believe that the residents there deserve more than what they're getting. So, and I think they should be able to own their own.
This is a follow-up on that one. Why are so many white men in charge of public and Section 8 housing?
You know, I don't
That's
know.
who can
I
pay
don't
for
know. I don't know if it's strategic. I don't know if.
And I think they mean the leadership.
Huh? You don't know if it's strategic.
Y'all trying to get me in trouble.
I mean,
No,
that's
okay,
still-
let me take it
yeah,
off
like, so
her.
that's still who's in control. You know,
Yeah.
bottom line, and I'll say real quick, kick it the razor, is that like that's just like with any other predominantly black organization. Not that public housing is a black organization, but I'm just using that as the framework. Anywhere there's predominant black people, I see it from time to time. You have a white person that will come in and see what's going
NAACP.
on, and that's one, and then they will see how the benefits of it, right? And then if they can get in control of it, they will stay around until they're in control of it. If they cannot take control, if we're standing our ground and saying we know what's best for our people, we're going to be the leaders of this, they will be gone. They will not stay, and
Yep.
and that's how you know their character.
Absolutely.
Mr. Turner was catching some heat from the African American community with the NAACP.
See, this is the problem. We didn't support the NAACP the way that we did when we were trying to get the right to vote. And so what has happened is people with money have said, okay, this is a good cause. I'm going to give you all this money. Now, when you look at the membership, it's down. When you go to these meetings, it's no young people in there. It's just older people. They've already fought their fight. It's not their job to do it anymore, but they're trying to keep it going. But there's nothing that they can do if their revenue is coming from somebody who is in control of them that doesn't look like them. Like
and
what?
And they need fresh blood too, though. Like
That's what I said, there's
have
no
to-
young people.
Yeah, we
There's-
have to get up off of our behinds and get into that.
And that's one of the
activist
reasons
work.
why you see new groups like Black Lives Matter and and so on and so forth, because we're looking for that new representation. But mind you, I will say while we need to be involved and while NAACP has lost some of its luster, fact of the matter is when a black person is faced with those discriminations, that's still to this day the first organization that normally gets contacted. So it still has weight and relevance in my personal opinion. But there needs to be a facelift of it.
That's one of the few things in this world that I disagree with Charles. I don't think the NAACP has relevance like it did, because where are they at when all these shootings and stuff take place? They aren't on the front line. You don't know why? Because their money is coming from somebody that does not look like them.
And it could also depend on who's leading it.
It's being led by the people that they want in power. Once I start giving you money, I control you. Economics controls everything. There's not too many things in this world that I can't throw money at and fix or shift the way I want to.
Yeah. And saying that, there's a difference between the national and local leaderships as well. So the national level of that organization it looks a lot.
It's tainted.
Yeah, it looks a lot uglier than your local.
Yeah,
chapters.
it's tainted.
Yeah.
We shuffling around because we don't want to offend, because we got some connections with people. But the NAACP is the National Negro College Fund. It ain't even really called that no more. It's they give out money just like they do the people of color thing. So they've strategic. While we have thought that we're getting to an even playing ground, the enemy, so to speak, has still been putting things in place to make sure that you don't get up out of this pot that you in.
I understand what you're saying, but still yet, when you have older people who, like you said, have already fought their fight, who are in most cases Christians and believe in the biblical way of settling things, that fight that we all want them to bring just isn't there.
Yeah, that's right.
all
But
that
when
I'm
we
saying.
start Black Lives Matter, it get labeled as a terrorist group. That lets you know there that they've already undermined it. So when you're trying
I
to
think
bring
it's a
in
little
new
bit of both.
A little bit.
Yeah, this is IMHO.
We got more topics. You want me to keep firing your way?
More topics.
You got no time, right?
I gotta go.
A little
You
bit.
gotta go. She's
Okay.
gotta go.
I mean, like we can roll if you want to keep it going, stream later. I don't know. It don't matter.
Charles
to me.
loves
Yeah, what you? I mean,
Dude, we can
like
do
we're
this
in our
anytime
zone.
you want.
Yeah, but
Seriously.
but just real quick, the other thing on Razor said, like to make sure I'm not dancing around anything. Like I do believe it's just like with politics with an ACP is the same. Like on a local small level, people like are wholeheartedly in it and feel that they're doing the right thing. They don't even know on the larger scale, on the higher scale, like the dirt that's going on up there. You know what I mean? So that's what I meant by whether it's local politicians, local chapters of organizations could really be wholeheartedly doing good things and the right thing. But not know that once you get elevated, it's another ball.
But they always put in place, if you look at the paperwork, because most people don't read the fine print, is that, okay, for this decision to be made, it has to be sent to the higher ups. So they already got it in play. Yeah, do all you're going to do down there, but when the decision get made, it has to get sent up to us, and we're only going to let what's going to benefit us.
Tyler Berry, Sean Jenkins, Daryl Keys, Washington, and one more. I'm going to throw it to you. I'll say, Max, what up on your take on public housing? Francis Burton, Leontine Clay Peck, all giving you props. Stepping
Appreciate
stone.
that. Yeah.
Oprah.
Stepping stone. Charlottesville's Oprah.
Yeah.
Charles like Oprah right here. Plug the
And
show.
you know who hopefully I don't get myself in any trouble, but you know who understands it the most in terms of public housing and using it for what I feel like it should be used for, right? Are the people that come here from other countries. They come here and I live here while I go to school to be a doctor, or I live here while I do, this or that in order to build myself up, and then I move out and whatnot. So they get it the most than the people that are already here and decide to make it home.
Yes, because to them it's still the American dream.
Right.
To African Americans, that dream became a nightmare.
What do you say? They landed on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
The show's been amazing. Let's plug in my humble opinion.
Yes. So tune in to In My Humble Opinion on 101.3 Jamz, WVAI Radio. We air every Sunday from 12 to 3 p.m. So same type of conversation, same type of dialogue. So if you want more of this, that's how you can catch up with us.
We have a lot of segments that can become your favorites. And not only that, we're streamed worldwide, by the way, 101jams.com or the TuneIn app, as well as other streaming services at WVAI. So because we literally are streamed worldwide.
Yeah, and also when we're having our live shows, call in. We love taking calls in. We love taking questions. We don't duck anything.
You guys should set up the live stream on social.
We ain't got no money.
How about the station?
So we pretty much, the station is our platform, but we pretty much take care of ourselves.
Understood.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, respect.
It's like a syndication.
Yeah,
Yeah.
respect.
Anyways.
Respect. So many Hampton people watching here. Guys, I'm sorry we're not going to be able to get to all these comments. We are 92 minutes in. 92 minutes of straight talking. It was awesome.
Max said, "Oh God, I gotta get."
She's like, "It's 2:02. What? It's the longest lunch break ever."
Oh my goodness!
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, look, go back and hold your stomach. Ooh, them tacos.
We're going to
So,
take
say
the
something
entire
like that.
show. We're going to archive it on ilovecville.com. It's on all
Thank
their
y'all.
social channels.
Yeah.
They effing crushed it. We're going to turn it into an iTunes podcast by COB today. We close the show the same way every single time. Everybody that's watching, golden rule, baby. Treat other people how you want to be treated yourself. Think about the concept. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself, and watch the positive impact it'll have across Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the world, the country. We need it. We need it. The golden rule.
Amen.
We are back in 57 minutes with our charity-focused show on the I Love CVille Network. Today, we're going to spotlight caring for creatures, Central Virginia's first no-kill animal sanctuary. It's right in Fluvanna County. They take the most at-risk animals up and down the eastern seaboard to give them a second chance at life in Fluvanna. I love animals. I love charity. Join us in 56 minutes. Take care.
Hey, thank you.
Good work.
Thank you again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
hope
work.
not.
Good work.
Thank you.
Good work. Okay, can we take a quick photo?
Yeah.
10 seconds. Oh, amazing. J-Dubs, we got to hustle on this pick. Max got to get back to work.